on the previous episode of Talk That Talk.
I think some of the things from our culture in the history, we think about, you know how we had the whole saying, "Make America Great Again." If we're talking about when Black people were the strongest, it was when we had visionaries in our culture. All right, we had people who actually were leading. Um, our America was never great, but Black people were a little bit more close because the situation called for it. The negative aspects of the world were calling for us to be closer because there's options and availability to so many different resources and um, avenues for options in every source that you can imagine. It puts us in a place where people, kind of going back to something I said earlier, we all kind of feel like nobody can tell somebody what's not good and what's not bad anymore. So you can't really improve anything when there is no standard, and you need a visionary to be able to help create a new standard. There's no standards, so you need people to be on the front lines of promoting musical standards, cultural standards, whatever. But then that gets to almost like a morality thing. And how do you, in an era where nobody really gives a shit about morality, how do you start to put a bow around morality and feed it to people and say this is what we're going to do? That's really difficult. And so that's the reason why I brought that up. I knew Make America Great Again, whatever, get everybody's attention. So the reason for mentioning that is just because I mean, you think about MLK, you think about Malcolm X, you think about Huey Newton, you think about anybody who was important to the culture for different reasons. They all have people who didn't like them. You know what I mean? They all have people who were against what they were trying to do. We all love people when they die. You know what I'm saying? And we have a thing right now, and I think this goes to something Rick was talking about. We also have to get to a place where we are supportive of our stars of our culture, people who are really strong in what they do, and allowing those people to get their flowers while they can still smell them. You know what I mean? Instead of waiting till people, you know, are close to death and then saying something about how good they are or how they were or whatever. There are people doing great things in some programs, and then other people not, and they're just allowed to continue to go forward. And you can't improve a culture until you have people, especially if you're talking about just HBCU bands. You can't really improve a culture until you have schools that have visions too. Schools that have a vision for what they want, and then wanting to put somebody else in a position to have a vision. So, like, for example, I'm a high school band director. So as a high school band director, I can have all the vision I want. But if the principal doesn't see my vision or want to support my vision, it doesn't matter what I want. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what I want, because I'm just going to be fighting against, like, you know what I mean, something the whole time. So it's really important to make sure schools have an idea, and then directors match they can find somebody who matches the ideals of what the institution is about and what they want their program to be built upon. But that's going to be very difficult, because a lot of times, a lot of these schools are missing out on great candidates because they only want somebody with a doctorate, when clearly that does not determine whether or not you're good or not. Clearly, it does not. So it does show that you have studied a certain amount, but it doesn't mean that this person with a doctorate, because we know people with doctorates and programs that are trash. So, you know, and people with masters that have good programs. So like, I mean, we don't want to act like this degree makes you the great band director. It's communication. It's skills to make sure people can want to follow you. People need to want to follow somebody, and you can't improve a culture to people want to follow and get behind and advocate and believe in somebody. We have to believe in something, and we don't really have it. Everybody's kind of flying solo. That's the culture of America, though. In general, we all flying solo. We doing what we want to do, and you can't say that.
Okay. So a couple of things. First thing, if you're watching on Facebook, because I see there's a lot of people who are commenting, but a lot of people are commenting on my personal Facebook page, so they're not coming through on the show. So if you can go over to the Talk That Talk Facebook page, you can continue to watch over there, but at least when you comment, the comments will actually come through on the show. And that's kind of what I'm not seeing, so I have to keep moving back and forth on both pages to see the comments. So Bailey, I see you in here. Shuni, I see you in here. But like I said, the comments just aren't coming through on the show. So just go over to the Talk That Talk Facebook page and then watch the show from there, and then you'll be able to get your comments through. One of the other things that I did want to say too, for everybody who's watching right now, as far as improving the culture, because this is one of the things that I just thought about, and I honestly don't really give my opinions too much on here because I'm, like I just said, I'll be going back and forth, but it just popped in my brain. One of the things that I think about when I think about improving the culture is things like this, what we're doing right now, right? Like having real, true conversations. One thing that, and I will tell this to anybody who's watching. Rick knows this, Mario knows this, Maya knows this, because I've spread my vision with them, off top. This ain't gonna be a trash talk session. We gonna come in here and we gonna have the real conversations, because the reality is that a lot of the reason why a lot of the culture is trash right now is because the only thing that we subscribe to is negative, right? We get into our Facebook groups and then we talk a bunch of and then we put up a bunch of videos of band programs and we talk about them, and then we talk about each other, and then we go on about our business. But we're not willing to have the real conversations.